Ako had always been a strong and determined young woman. No matter how difficult life became, she found a way to keep moving forward. However, the challenge she faced now was unlike anything she had ever experienced before. Her mother, the only family she had left, was seriously ill and required constant medical care. Each day, Ako watched her mother's condition worsen, and the burden of hospital bills weighed heavily on her shoulders. One afternoon, the doctor called her aside with a grave expression. He explained that the hospital could no longer continue treatment without payment. A sum of 90,000 naira had to be paid by Friday, otherwise the medication and treatment would be stopped immediately. The words struck Ako like a thunderbolt. She knew she did not have that kind of money, and there was no one she could turn to for help. When she returned to her mother's bedside, she forced a smile despite the fear and uncertainty growing inside her. Her mother noticed her worried expression and asked what the doctor had said. Not wanting to cause her any distress, Ako assured her that everything would be fine. Deep down, however, she had no idea how she would find the money in time. For days, Ako searched desperately for a solution. She considered borrowing money, taking on extra work, and even selling the few valuable possessions she owned. Yet nothing seemed enough to raise the amount needed. As the deadline drew closer, panic began to consume her. One evening, while sitting outside the hospital lost in thought, she was approached by her close friend, Zikora. Seeing the exhaustion and worry on Ako's face, Zikora asked what was wrong. Ako explained her situation and the urgent need for money to continue her mother's treatment. After listening carefully, Zikora hesitated for a moment before revealing that she might know of an unusual opportunity. There is a powerful and wealthy family in Abuja, Zikora said quietly. They are looking for a woman to enter into a contract marriage. Ako stared at her in disbelief. A contract marriage, she repeated. Zikora nodded. She explained that the arrangement was not a real marriage in the traditional sense. The family had planned an important marriage agreement, but the woman originally chosen had backed out at the last minute. Now they urgently needed someone educated, presentable, and trustworthy to take her place. The contract lasts only 6 months, Zikora continued. During that time, you will attend family gatherings, accompany the man to important events, and live wherever the family requires. You will act as his wife in public, but after 6 months, the arrangement ends. Ako listened carefully, still uncertain about what she was hearing. And how much are they offering? She finally asked. 5 million naira. The amount left her speechless. 5 million naira was more money than she had ever imagined having. It was enough to pay her mother's medical bills, provide proper care, and completely change their lives. Yet the idea of entering a fake marriage with strangers felt risky and uncomfortable. For the rest of the night, Ako wrestled with the decision. She thought about the consequences, the uncertainty, and the possibility that things could go wrong. But every time she considered refusing, she remembered her mother's weak condition and the doctor's warning. Eventually, she realized she had little choice. The following morning, Ako contacted Zikora and asked for the details. An appointment was arranged immediately. A few days later, Ako arrived at a magnificent mansion in Abuja. The property was unlike anything she had ever seen. Tall gates guarded the entrance, expensive vehicles lined the driveway, and uniformed staff moved about with quiet efficiency. The wealth and influence of the family were evident in every detail. As she approached the front entrance, a security officer stopped her and asked her purpose for visiting. "My name is Ako," she replied nervously. "I have an appointment with Mr. Damian." The officer looked her over before speaking into a communication device. After receiving confirmation, he instructed her to enter. Inside, she was escorted through elegant hallways decorated with expensive artwork and luxurious furnishings. Eventually, she was led into a spacious office where a man sat behind a large desk. Without looking up immediately, he said, "Send her in." Ako stepped inside and took a seat when invited. Mr. Damien studied her carefully before speaking. You understand what this arrangement is? He asked. Yes, Ako replied confidently. Explain it to me. She took a deep breath. It is a 6-month paper marriage. I will attend family functions, maintain appearances, and stay where the family requires. We will not interfere in each other's private lives. Mr. Damien nodded with approval. Good. At least you've taken the time to understand the terms. A brief silence followed. Do you have any questions? He asked. Ako hesitated. This was the moment that truly mattered. Just one. Go ahead. She lowered her eyes for a moment before gathering the courage to speak. Would it be possible to receive an advance payment? Mr. Damien's expression remained unchanged. Why? Ako swallowed hard. My mother is very sick. She needs medication immediately. The hospital has given us a deadline, and I don't have the money to continue her treatment. For the first time, a flicker of interest appeared in Damien's eyes. He studied her face carefully, trying to determine whether she was telling the truth. Ako met his gaze and continued. I am not asking for charity. I am willing to fulfill every condition of the contract. I simply need help now so my mother can survive long enough for me to complete it. The room fell silent. Ako's future, her mother's life, and the success of the entire arrangement seemed to hang on whatever answer Damien would give next. Ako lowered her eyes and clasped her trembling hands together. The advance payment Damien had offered at the beginning of the contract would certainly help, but it wasn't enough. Her mother's condition was worsening every day, and she knew she couldn't afford to wait 6 months for the full payment. I cannot wait 6 months, she said quietly, her voice filled with desperation. Damien studied her for a moment. He was a man known for making decisions based on logic rather than emotion, yet something in Ako's expression caught his attention. Perhaps it was the sincerity in her eyes or the determination she carried despite her difficult circumstances. Without hesitation, he turned to his assistant. Kola, process an advance of 500,000 naira to her account. Ako's eyes widened in shock. Thank you, she said immediately. Damien raised a hand, stopping her. Don't thank me. The amount will be deducted from your final payment. That's fine, she replied, relief washing over her. It is done, Kola confirmed. Make sure the transfer is completed today, Damien instructed before dismissing the matter entirely. For Ako, however, it was not a simple business transaction. It felt like a lifeline. Later that day, Ako arrived at the enormous family estate that would be her home for the next 6 months. The compound was unlike anything she had ever seen. Elegant buildings stood surrounded by perfectly maintained gardens, and security personnel watched every entrance. As she stepped through the gate carrying her small suitcase, a middle-aged man approached her with a warm smile. Welcome, madam. Thank you, Ako replied politely. And you are? My name is Bello. I manage the gate and oversee security around this section of the compound. Nice to meet you. I'm Ako. Bello chuckled softly. I knew who you are. His expression suddenly became serious. This is a very large compound with many people. Not everybody will be happy that you're here. Keep your eyes open. Ako frowned slightly. What do you mean? But Bello simply shook his head. You'll understand soon enough. His words left an uneasy feeling in her stomach. Not long after settling in, Ako encountered a strikingly beautiful woman standing near one of the gardens. The woman looked her up and down slowly before speaking. So, this is my replacement. Ako blinked in confusion. I'm sorry. Have we met before? No. The woman smiled, but there was little warmth in it. Trust me. You'll be hearing a lot about me. Before Ako could ask another question, the woman turned and walked away. Bello, who had witnessed the exchange from a distance, approached her afterward. I hope you heard what she didn't say. Akor looked at him curiously. What does that mean? That woman doesn't give up anything she believes belongs to her. And in her mind, you are the person who took what she wanted. Akor immediately understood. The woman must be Vida. The same Vida everyone had expected Damien to marry. The following morning, unable to sleep, Akor woke before dawn and wandered into the kitchen. Cooking had always been one of the few things that brought her comfort, especially during difficult times. She decided to prepare breakfast for the household. The aroma of freshly cooked food soon filled the mansion. An older housekeeper entered the kitchen and inhaled deeply. "This smell," she said softly. "It reminds me of my mother's kitchen." Akor smiled. "Your mother taught you?" the woman asked. "Yes. Everything I know about cooking came from her." The woman's expression softened immediately. "My daughter, be careful in this house." Akor paused. "Why?" The older woman lowered her voice. "Not everybody is happy that you came here. Some people will smile at you while secretly planning against you." Before Akor could respond, the woman hurried away. The warning stayed with her long after she finished preparing breakfast. Later that morning, Damien sat at the dining table with several family members. The breakfast served that day was noticeably different from usual. After taking a bite, Damien looked up. "It's good." His mother smiled. "You seem to be enjoying breakfast this morning." "I am." "Who made it?" "Miss Akor," one of the staff members answered. For a brief moment, Damien seemed surprised. He didn't say anything else, but the answer clearly caught his attention. Across the table, a few family members exchanged silent glances. Someone new was beginning to leave an impression. That same afternoon, Akor's phone rang. It was the hospital. The advance payment had been received. Her mother's medication had been purchased, and treatment would continue without interruption. Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." After ending the call, she knelt beside her bed. "Thank you, God," she prayed. "I knew you would make a way." For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace. Later, Damien called her to his office. "The hospital confirmed receipt of the payment," he said. "Yes. My mother's medication has been paid for. Thank you for the advance." "How old is she?" 54. "What illness does she have?" "Stage 3 kidney disease. The medication prevents the condition from worsening." Damien nodded thoughtfully. "Make sure she gets everything she needs." Akor frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'll have Kola arrange direct payments to the hospital." Her eyes widened. "That wasn't part of the contract. Consider it an amendment." For the first time, she saw a side of Damien she hadn't expected, a side that seemed far more compassionate than his cold exterior suggested. Unfortunately, not everyone was pleased. Elsewhere on the estate, Vide paced angrily while speaking on the phone. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" the voice on the other end asked. "Zikora. It's her first move." "What happened?" "The Calabar girl is getting too comfortable. And Damien is starting to notice her." There was silence. "What do you want me to do?" "Come to the compound tonight. I have an idea." As she ended the call, determination flashed in her eyes. She had no intention of allowing Akor to take the place she believed belonged to her. That evening, while walking through the compound, Akor found Bello sitting outside. A question that had been bothering her finally slipped out. "Bello, who exactly is Vida?" The old gatekeeper sighed. "Long before you came here, Vida was already part of this family." "What do you mean?" "When Oga Damien's father was still alive, everybody believed Vida would eventually become the woman of this house." "Damien's wife?" "Yes." Akor was surprised. If everyone expected that, why didn't Damien marry her? Bello looked around before lowering his voice. Because Oga Damien's grandfather left a condition in his will. Before Damien could fully inherit the company, he had to be legally married. Akor listened carefully. The old man understood his grandson. Damien loved business more than people. After his father died, he buried himself in work. No relationships. No family life. Nothing except the company. So everyone expected Vida. Of course. She was the obvious choice. What happened? Bello smiled knowingly. Sometimes rich people see things differently. Vida always talked about power, money, position, and the future of the company. So when Damien offered her the same contract he later offered you. He paused dramatically. Akor leaned forward. The contract. Bello nodded slowly. Vida refused. And suddenly, many pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Bello and Zikora continued their walk through the quiet gardens of the estate. The evening breeze rustled the leaves overhead as Bello finally revealed the truth about Vida and Damien's past. The contract, Bello said with a sigh. Vida refused it immediately. Zikora looked at him in surprise. Refused? Yes. Oga Damien offered her the same arrangement he later offered you. 6 months of marriage, just enough to satisfy the condition in his grandfather's will. But Vida didn't want 6 months. She wanted forever. Bello paused before continuing. Vida told him, if we're getting married, then let it be real. Zikora remained silent, listening carefully. The problem was that Oga Damien wasn't looking for love. He wasn't searching for a wife. He simply wanted to fulfill the conditions of the will so he could take complete control of the company. What happened after that? Zikora asked. The argument was terrible, Bello replied. Very terrible. Both of them said things they couldn't take back. Within 2 weeks, Vida packed her belongings and left the compound. His expression darkened. But then, on the very day you arrived, Vida came back. Zikora immediately understood. And the first thing she saw was you standing in the position she believed belonged to her, Bello finished. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Bello shook his head. Let me tell you the truth, my daughter. Oga Damien never loved Vida. Why? Because Vida never truly loved him. Zikora frowned. What do you mean? Bello stopped walking and turned toward her. Everything Vida loved about this family was what this family could give her. The wealth. The company. The influence. The status. The power. Those were the things she wanted. He looked toward the massive mansion standing proudly in the distance. Oga Damien has many problems. But one thing he fears more than anything is regret. He was afraid of spending the rest of his life with someone who loved his money more than she loved him. The old gatekeeper's eyes softened. Just be careful until your contract is over. Those words remained in Zikora's mind long after the conversation ended. Elsewhere in the compound, Vida sat alone in her room, her anger growing stronger with every passing day. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. That man really thinks I'm a fool. Her voice dripped with bitterness. He doesn't want a real marriage with me, but he brings some random girl from Calabar into this house and expects me to believe it's only a contract. She laughed coldly. No. Never. Years of ambition, planning, and sacrifice flashed through her mind. Everything I have waited for. Everything I have worked for. I will not lose it to Zikora. Her eyes narrowed. If I don't act fast, I might be the one who loses. Slowly, a smile spread across her face. I think I know exactly what to do. She opened a jewelry box and removed an expensive diamond bracelet. Turning to a trusted servant, she held it out. Take this. The servant hesitated. Are you sure about this? Very sure. Vida's voice was ice cold. Go and hide it inside Zikora's wardrobe. Make sure nobody sees you. The servant looked nervous. But no excuses. Vida's expression hardened. I cannot lose this house. She clenched her fist. I cannot lose Damien. And I will not stand by while the village girl takes my place. The servant reluctantly accepted the bracelet and left. After the door closed, Vida leaned back in her chair. Let's see how you explain this one, Zikora. A few days later, the mansion buzzed with activity. Important members of Damien's extended family had arrived for a gathering. Relatives filled the grand halls, exchanging greetings and catching up after months apart. Damien stood near the entrance welcoming guests when an elderly uncle approached him. Damien, the man said warmly, patting him on the shoulder. You look more and more like your father every year. Good to see you, uncle. The older man smiled. So, this wife we've been hearing about, where is she? Several relatives immediately became curious. Yes, another added. Where is she? Damien glanced across the room. Zikora. Moments later, she approached. The room seemed to grow quieter as family members examined her. One elderly woman looked her over carefully. So this is the girl. Another relative nodded. Very simple. Zikora maintained her composure. Good morning, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you. The woman gave a small nod. She would do for now. Though the comment stung, Zikora politely smiled. An older gentleman stepped forward. So, young lady, which part of Calabar are you from? Ikat Ekpin, sir. His face brightened. Ikat Ekpin. That's a lovely area. What do your parents do? My mother is a teacher. My father passed away when I was very young. The conversation remained pleasant until a familiar voice interrupted. And how exactly did you meet Damien? Everyone turned. Vida. She stood nearby with a polite smile that barely concealed her hostility. That's actually a very good question, she continued. I was wondering the same thing. The room grew uncomfortable. How exactly did you and Damien meet? Zikora carefully chose her words. Through family arrangements. Interesting. Vida smiled. Very interesting. Her eyes swept across the room. Because 1 week ago, nobody in this family had ever heard her name. The tension increased. And suddenly she's standing beside Damien. Nobody spoke. You must admit everything happened very fast. One day nobody knows her. The next day she's living in the family compound. Zikora straightened her shoulders. I did not invite myself. Of course, Vida replied sweetly. Nobody is saying otherwise. Meanwhile, upstairs, Vida's plan was already in motion. The servant who had planted the bracelet quietly sent her a message. It's done. Give it 20 minutes. Vida smiled. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Suddenly, a loud gasp echoed through the mansion. Wait. Everyone turned. Vida frantically touched her wrist. My bracelet. The room erupted into confusion. My bracelet is gone. Family members immediately began searching. One of the staff members stepped forward. Who has been upstairs today? I cleaned some of the rooms this morning, a maid answered nervously. Vida folded her arms. I want her room searched. The room fell silent. Zikora stared at her. Excuse me. If you have nothing to hide, there shouldn't be a problem. Damien remained silent. Finally, Zikora nodded. Fine. Let them check. Several staff members headed upstairs. Minutes later, they returned. One maid looked horrified. Oh my God. She held up the bracelet. I found it. The room exploded with shocked reactions. Vida covered her mouth dramatically. I knew it. Her voice trembled with fake disbelief. I knew something was wrong. Accusing fingers immediately pointed towards Zikora. A thief. Unbelievable. After everything. Zikora's heart pounded. I didn't put that bracelet there. Nobody listened. I have never stolen anything in my life. She turned desperately toward Damien. Look at me. Her eyes filled with tears. In 1 week, have I ever given you a reason not to trust me? Damien's expression remained unreadable. The bracelet was found in your wardrobe. Vida immediately seized the moment. What more proof do we need? The bracelet was found in her wardrobe. No. Zikora cried. I don't believe this. To her surprise, Bello stepped forward. I have watched this girl every day, he said firmly. Morning, afternoon, and night. She works harder than anyone in this house. But another relative shook their head. Being hardworking doesn't make someone innocent. The crowd slowly turned against her. Finally, Damien spoke. Zikora. She looked at him hopefully. Pack your things. The words struck her like a physical blow. For a moment, she could barely breathe. I didn't do it, she whispered. But the decision had already been made. As she slowly walked away, devastated and humiliated, Bello followed behind her. Once they were out of sight, he lowered his voice. Zikora. She stopped. Tears streamed down her face. I saw everything. Her eyes widened. You did. Bello nodded. I know exactly who planted that bracelet. Then let's tell Damien. Bello's face darkened. He won't listen. Not now. And for the first time since arriving at the mansion, Zikora realized that the greatest danger in the house was not being poor, not being an outsider, and not even being part of a fake marriage. The greatest danger was that someone powerful had decided to destroy her. Bello looked at Zikora with concern as she stood outside the gates of the estate, carrying the few belongings she had been allowed to take with her. Then I will wait, Bello said quietly. But I will not forget. Zikora nodded sadly. At that moment, she had little faith that the truth would ever come out. The humiliation she had suffered was still fresh in her mind. Being accused of theft in front of an entire family, having her room searched, and being thrown out without anyone truly listening to her explanation had left a wound much deeper than she cared to admit. As the car drove away from the compound, she stared out the window. She had entered that house carrying the burden of her mother's illness and the hope of changing their lives. Now she was living with nothing except heartbreak. Several days later, Zikora's phone rang. Miss Zikora, good morning. Good morning. This is the hospital. We are calling to confirm that the standing payment arrangement from Damien Towers was cancelled this morning. Zikora froze. Cancelled? Yes. Your mother's next medication course is due in 4 days. We will require an alternative payment arrangement. For a moment, panic gripped her chest. Her mother depended on those treatments. I'll sort it out, she said quietly before ending the call. The moment the line disconnected, tears filled her eyes. Even after everything, she still had no idea where she would find the money. At Damien Towers, Kola entered Damien's office carrying a file. Sir, the hospital payment arrangement for Miss Zikora's mother was cancelled this morning. Damien looked up immediately. Who authorized that? It was automatic, sir. When the marriage contract was terminated, all associated payments were discontinued. For a brief moment, Damien was silent. Then he spoke firmly. Reinstate it. Kola blinked. Sir. The woman is sick. His voice left no room for argument. Reinstate the payment. Yes, sir. As Kola left the office, Damian stared out the window. The memory of Zikora's face on the day she left continued to haunt him. The pain in her eyes. The disappointment. The betrayal. He had convinced himself he was making the correct decision. Now he wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, Vida sat comfortably inside her luxurious room, sipping wine as she admired the estate through her window. For the first time in weeks, she felt victorious. Finally, she said with a smile. The obstacle is gone. She leaned back in satisfaction. I can finally breathe. In her mind, everything was returning to normal. Soon Damian would realize she was the only woman suitable for him. Soon the future she had always imagined would become reality. She laughed softly. Imagine losing all of this. Her eyes moved across the enormous mansion, the expensive furnishings, and the luxury surrounding her. All this wealth. All this power. All this comfort. Her expression hardened. And for what? One Calabar girl who appeared from nowhere. She shook her head. Not me. Vida considered herself many things, but foolish was not one of them. Nobody takes what belongs to Vida. Her eyes gleamed with determination. If Damian doesn't want a real marriage with me, then he'll give me something else. She smiled coldly. One way or another, I am not finished with him yet. Back in Calabar, Zikora sat beside her mother's hospital bed. Her mother noticed her troubled expression immediately. Tell me what happened. Zikora looked away. It didn't work out, Mama. Her voice broke. They accused me of stealing. Her mother frowned. What? They searched my things in front of everybody. Tears streamed down her face. And the man whose house I was living in, he just stood there. The memory hurt as much now as it had that day. He said nothing. She lowered her head. I did everything right, Mama. Her shoulders shook. I was honest. A tear rolled down her cheek. I worked hard. Her mother reached out and held her hand. My daughter. Zikora looked up. This is not the end of your story. Her mother's voice was gentle but firm. This is only the part that hurts. Those words stayed with Zikora long after the conversation ended. For days later, chaos erupted at the estate. A valuable item had disappeared. One of the house staff rushed to bellow. The money is gone again. What money? Not money this time. The servant lowered his voice. Oga Damian's watch. Bellow's eyes widened. The watch his father gave him. The servant nodded. It's missing. Bello immediately understood what that meant. Zikora had already been gone for 4 days. There was no possible way she could be responsible. For a long moment, Bello stood silently. Then realization hit him. So it was never her. The servant nodded. It was never her. Bello clenched his fist. And now, he said firmly, everybody is going to know it. Later that afternoon, Bello stood inside Damian's office. Come in, Damian said. Bello entered. Is everything alright? I need to speak. Damian noticed the seriousness in his expression. Sit down. I will stand, sir. Damian nodded. Go ahead. Bello took a deep breath. On the morning of the family gathering, I saw Tara coming out of Zikora's room. Damian immediately looked up. Bello continued. She entered empty-handed. His voice hardened. But she came out hiding one hand inside her pocket. The room fell silent. And now your father's watch is missing. Damian's expression darkened. And Zikora has been gone for days. Suddenly, memories flooded his mind. Zikora's desperate voice. I didn't put that bracelet there. Look at me. Have I ever given you a reason not to trust me? For the first time, he allowed himself to consider a possibility he had refused to entertain. What if she had been telling the truth? The realization struck him like a hammer. His biggest mistake. His biggest regret. A woman who had trusted him completely had been abandoned when she needed him most. Damien slowly lowered his head. She was telling the truth. The words felt heavy. Painful. Unforgivable. He immediately looked at Kola. Kola. Yes, sir. I want Vida and Tara in my study. His eyes turned cold. Now. Minutes later, loud knocking echoed outside Vida's room. Miss Vida. She opened the door. Kola. What's this about? Oga Damien wants to see you. She smiled confidently. Now. Now. Tara too. The smile on Vida's face disappeared. After Kola left, she quickly grabbed her phone. Listen carefully, she whispered. Damien wants to see both of us. Tara sounded nervous. What do we do? Whatever happens. Vida's voice hardened. You say nothing. A short time later, both women stood inside Damien's study. The atmosphere was tense. Damien sat behind his desk. His expression was unreadable. Tara. Yes, sir. On the morning of the family gathering, were you upstairs? Yes. Did you enter Zikora's room? Tara swallowed. Yes. Why? No answer. Tara. Damien's voice grew colder. What were you doing inside Zikora's room? Silence. Then suddenly, Tara broke. It's not my fault. Everyone froze. Tears poured down her face. I didn't plan it. She pointed toward Vida. It was Vida. Vida's eyes widened. What? Vida gave me the bracelet. The words came out in a rush. She told me to hide it inside Zikora's wardrobe. The room exploded into silence. Vida immediately shook her head. She's lying. Damien, she's lying. But Tara was already crying uncontrollably. I'm sorry, sir. She looked down. I was scared. Her voice trembled. I should have told the truth. Damien slowly turned toward Vida. His expression was colder than she had ever seen. So this was your plan? Vida remained silent. To destroy an innocent woman. His voice rose. To humiliate her in front of the entire family. Another step. To throw her out of this house. Damien. Enough. The single word silenced the room. His decision had already been made. Go upstairs. Vida stared at him. What? Pack your things. Her face turned pale. And leave this house. You want me to leave? Leave. For the first time, she realized there would be no second chance. No negotiation. No forgiveness. Nothing. Defeated, she stormed upstairs and returned a short while later dragging several expensive suitcases. Just as she reached the front door, Damien's voice stopped her. Stop. Vida turned around. What now? Damien looked at the luggage. You're not leaving with those. She frowned. What? Everything in those suitcases was paid for by me. He pointed at them one by one. The handbags. The shoes. The jewelry. The designer clothes. His gaze settled on her. In fact, even the robe you're wearing right now was purchased with my money. Vida stood frozen. You leave with only what you're wearing. The room became completely silent. Drop the suitcases. His voice was final. And go. For the first time in years, Vida found herself speechless. The woman who had spent years trying to secure a place in the family was now being sent away with nothing. And as the front door slowly opened behind her, she realized that the game she thought she had won had cost her everything. Vida sat alone in a small rented apartment, staring at the few belongings she had left. The reality of her situation was finally beginning to sink in. Me, she muttered bitterly. Her hands trembled with anger. And I get thrown away like this. She paced across the room. No. I can't believe this. I can't lose like this. Everything she had spent years building toward had disappeared in a matter of days. Damien had taken back everything. The luxury car she drove. The designer clothes she proudly wore. The expensive handbags she loved to show off. The jewelry that symbolized the status she craved. Everything was gone. Now she was left with almost nothing. And in her mind, there was only one person to blame. All because of one Calabar girl. The bitterness in her voice filled the room. But elsewhere, Bello shook his head when he heard about Vida's situation. When pride blinds a person, he said quietly, they stop seeing the truth. The old gatekeeper looked toward the mansion where so much drama had unfolded. You tried to destroy someone who never did anything to you. He sighed deeply. Some people carry money. He paused. Some people carry power. Then he smiled. But some people carry grace. His eyes softened. And when God places his hand on someone, no amount of lies can keep them down forever. Several days later, Damien found himself standing outside a modest house in Calabar. His heart pounded harder than it had during any business negotiation. For the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of losing money. He was afraid of losing a person. The woman he had wronged. The woman he could not stop thinking about. He raised his hand and knocked on the door. A few moments later, it opened. Zikora stood before him. For several seconds neither of them spoke. The silence carried everything they had been unable to say. Behind her, her mother appeared. Good morning. Damien nodded respectfully. Good morning, Ma. The older woman looked surprised. You drove all the way from Abuja? Yes, Ma. She stepped aside. Then come inside. Damien entered the small house. The difference between this home and his enormous mansion could not have been greater. There were no chandeliers. No marble floors. No expensive artwork. Yet somehow, the atmosphere felt warm. Peaceful. Real. After a few minutes, Zikora's mother turned toward him. Tell me something, Damien. Her voice was calm but direct. When my daughter looked at you that day, did you believe she was guilty? The question hit him immediately. Damien lowered his eyes. No. The room became silent. I didn't believe she stole it. The older woman's expression changed. Then why? Her words were gentle, but they carried weight. If you didn't believe she stole it, why did you send her away? Damien struggled to answer. For perhaps the first time in his life, there was no logical explanation. No business reason. No excuse. Only regret. Before he could respond, Zikora's mother reached for her medication. The simple action reminded him of everything that had been at stake. Her health. Her survival. The sacrifices Zikora had made for her. Damien looked around the modest living room. Then he smiled sadly. You know something strange. The women looked at him. I've only been here 10 minutes. His eyes moved around the room. And this house already feels more peaceful than my mansion. Zikora immediately shook her head. Don't. Damien looked at her. Don't what? Don't try to make this easy. Her voice trembled slightly. Because it wasn't easy for me. The pain in her eyes reminded him of the day she left. The humiliation. The betrayal. The disappointment. Nothing could erase it. After a moment, she asked quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." Her gaze remained fixed on him. "When you told me to pack my things, did you even think about me after I left?" The question cut deeper than any accusation. Damien swallowed. Then he smiled sadly. "The flowers died." Zikora blinked. "What?" "The flowers in the garden." His voice softened. "You watered them every morning." Memories flashed through both of their minds. The early mornings. The peaceful moments in the garden. The small touches she had brought into the house. 3 days after you left, Damien continued, they started dying. His eyes met hers. That's when I knew something was wrong. Tears formed in Zikora's eyes. It wasn't the bracelet. Her voice was barely above a whisper. It wasn't even the accusation. She wiped her face. I knew the truth would come out eventually. Her gaze locked onto his. But you. Her voice broke. You were the one person I thought would stand beside me. The words struck Damien harder than anything else. He looked away, ashamed. For the first time, he truly understood the depth of the hurt he had caused. After a long silence, he said softly, "Those flowers never survived the Abuja heat." The comment drew the faintest smile from Zikora. Then Damien continued. "Everybody deserves a chance." He looked around the room. "You changed my house." Both women looked at him. "Before you came, it was just walls." He smiled faintly. "People. Meetings. Work." His voice softened further. Then suddenly there was laughter. He paused. There were flowers. His eyes remained on Zikora. There was life. She looked away before he could see the emotions building in her eyes. At that moment, her mother quietly joined the conversation. "Did she tell you about her father?" Damien looked confused. "No, Ma." Her mother smiled sadly. "He died when she was 6. Damien turned towards Zikora. She remained silent. "When I became sick," her mother continued, "she saw the scar." Damien stared at her. "She never told me that." The older woman chuckled softly. "Of course she didn't." Her eyes filled with pride. "She never talks about the sacrifices she makes." She continued. "When she received the university scholarship, she was supposed to move into a better hostel." Damien listened carefully. "Instead, she used the money for my treatment." His expression slowly changed. Everything began to make sense. The contract. The desperation. The courage. The sacrifices. The older woman looked directly at him. "Do you know why she agreed to your contract?" Damien remained silent. "It wasn't because of your money." She shook her head. "It wasn't because of your mansion." Another shake. "It wasn't because of your name." Tears formed in her eyes. She was afraid she would lose me. The room became completely silent. Damien felt his chest tighten. Every assumption he had made about Zikora now seemed foolish. She had never been motivated by wealth. She had been motivated by love. Finally, Damien spoke. "More." His voice was filled with sincerity. "I cannot change what I did." He looked at Zikora. "I cannot erase that day." His eyes reflected genuine remorse. "But from today." He turned toward her mother. "You will never have to choose between medication and survival again." The older woman smiled. For the first time, she believed him. A few moments later she stood up slowly. "You two should go outside." Both looked surprised. "I want to rest." Then she pointed playfully toward them. "And no more crying in my house." For the first time all day, everyone laughed. Outside, beneath the shade of a mango tree, Damien and Zikora sat together. The afternoon breeze moved gently through the branches. For several moments neither spoke. Finally Damian broke the silence. "Tell me you've forgiven me." Zikora looked at him carefully. The hurt was still there. The memories remained. But so did the truth. He had come. He had admitted his mistake. He had chosen honesty instead of pride. Slowly she nodded. Yes. Damian released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Thank God. A smile appeared on his face. This time there will be no contract. He looked directly at her. No conditions. Another pause. No pretending. His voice was steady. "I'll help you find a better job." He smiled. "A place of your own." Then he added, "And your mother will receive the best treatment possible." Zikora listened quietly. For the first time, there were no business arrangements between them. No legal documents. No obligations. Just honesty. Just possibility. Damian took a deep breath. "So?" A hopeful smile appeared on his face. "Can we start again?" Zikora looked at him for a long moment. Then a small smile touched her lips. "Yes." Damian's eyes brightened. But she raised a finger. Slowly. He laughed softly. "Fair enough." And beneath the warm Calabar sky, for the first time, neither of them was pretending anymore. Their story was no longer built on a contract, an obligation, or a misunderstanding. It was finally beginning with the truth.